Welcome to episode, believe it or not, 20. We are now a legitimate podcast because we have the 20 in front of our name. That's 20 episodes of Kurt Stockton, Ed Philbrick, and Derin. We've known each other since we say 1980, and we've spent a little under a year accumulating 20 episodes.
So we've still known each other for more years than we've done podcasts. So we still have to, right? You got it. Yeah.
We'd have to pod for a long time to be podding long. Well, you can never pod longer than you've known each other, because you'll always know each other, continue to know each other longer.
So we've had a lot of topics that you can go back in the archives now and learn about some of our history. Last week we talked about all of our experiences with Yeti bicycles and riding all the bikes. So Kurt has an Instagram post about that today, and including the history of the color of Yeti bikes. So look back in our 20 episodes. Find us on Substack. We're on YouTube, where you can watch clips. We're also viewable on Spotify, where you can watch video and audio, and Apple Podcasts, we're audio until March or April, when they're going to roll out video as well. So we encourage you to go back and listen to our 20 episodes, and please share it with our friends and your friends and help us grow.
Yes.
So what's been going on? Any interesting rides going on for you guys?
What about you, Diaz? We've had snow and rain, so my riding has been inside. End of interest.
I think normally my weekend days are my biggest ride days, just light work. But last weekend, Sunday was my daughter's 16th birthday, so we had weekend festivities going on. But I did get out on Wednesday afternoon and rode in Elings Park up in Santa Barbara, which was really good because I'd ripped those new tires around on Sunday, twice out at the Bluffs, and then got to go out to Elings on Wednesday. And the next time you guys come up, we got to get out to Elings. It is tailor-made for like a gravel bike or like an XCO bike like yours. It's just not too choppy. You can, if there's a little bit of braking bumps, you can usually divert around them as you're going into the turn. The traction is just so good. The view is great. And, I love just doing laps on things. And, as you guys know, when you came up here and we rode in Carp and Summerlin that time, and we were hitting laps up on, on Thunderbolt, the top of the Bluffs, it's funny how in cycling, I may have mentioned this before, I think when we think of like gravel riding or going out for rides in general, like usually in cycling, you're not doing laps. If you go out for a ride, most people aren't. I think once you get on dirt, you kind of maybe get a little bit more of that idea, because you can, you can make a track, right? A loop. And I guess on a road bike, it kind of doesn't make sense to just keep riding around in the same area. You want to get out and go, but riding something where you can ride laps is just so great, just for improving your skill ability, because, you get to hit the same corner maybe 10 times. Whereas out on a ride, if you only hit it once and you don't hit it right, how are you supposed to go back and correct and figure out how you could do it a little bit better? So I definitely got in my laps last week. Between the weekend and Wednesday at Elings, was ripping laps around in that 2.0 or the 50 mil rear 2.1 Gravel King SK setup in the standard casing. It is mobbing. I had plenty of traction out there. It was great. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've been riding panic training for BWR Arizona. So
what does panic training consist of? Yeah.
Well, it just means you ride your bike. Even if you ride it in the dark with your lights the entire time and you never really go that hard, it's still panic training. But I was dropping down towards the bridges in Rancho Santa Fe in North County, San Diego, where the Battle of the Bridges took place between Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson, live on ABC in the Monday Night Football slot. Kind of one of the bigger moments in sports marketing and golf. Mm-hmm. Those two played each other head to head. Anyway, there's a creek crossing near the Bridges golf course, and I'm headed down to the course, and I'm dropping down, and this nice gentleman who I've seen before with his dog off the leash says to me, he's all, "Hey, you're not planning on crossing the creek tonight, are you?" And I'm like, it's no big deal. And he's all, "Well, you know what? I'm a retired fireman." And he's all, "I've rescued two fatalities down there and a couple of, swift water rescues. And he says, I don't think you should cross tonight. And so I got down and I said to him, you know what? I appreciate that. You're probably right, but I'm going to go down and check it out. So I went all the way down, checked it out. And I was like, it's just, I could see where if something went wrong, you would suddenly be,
Right.
in a little bit of trouble. And recently we've had a couple of swift water rescues here this winter. And so I thought, I don't really want to be that guy. So I turned around and rode back up this ungodly steep hill. And I go, that's pretty good training. So anyway, that's been my panic training.
Yeah, the panic training. I know the winter creek crossings, those will get hold of you, and maybe it's mossy or slippery underneath, and pretty soon you lose your balance or your bike catches some water and then you're off the edge and down into some rocks or something. Definitely not good to do. I've seen that happen a couple of times, and also have assessed creek crossings here and there and been like, I don't know about that. I think I'm going to turn around. Yeah, good call.
Yeah. Well, I would have felt safer on foot than I would on my bike, because the mossy concrete is just, you might slip when you least expect it. Whereas on foot, you could kind of like use a walking stick and you could kind of more stabilize yourself. Anyway, the next night I went down there, maybe a week later, the water level was gone way down. It comes way up and then drops real quick. So
yeah, and it goes way up. I had I'm trying to think. Oh, I was going to say,
I have a question about the panic training.
Oh, panic
training. Is it
training.
more physical training or mental training to ease your
both.
mind, or a little bit of both?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Give you confidence. Yeah. Make you sleep a little easier.
At this point, there's no fitness that's really being gained. It's just lower the anxiety that I've got to go 70 miles in 89 degree temperatures. And so I'm going to go out and ride in the dark at 60 degrees.
Hey, stay hydrated,
you know what?
Right?
All work is cumulative. You get it in however you can get it in. That's the key.
Well, I remember. Do you guys ever remember doing the creek crossing at Cold Springs Creek on Mountain Drive before before it was all redone? But remember, we used to ride
debris flood.
Debris flow, and it seemed like it was at some point there was a big flow that filled the culvert. So it seemed like there was always water going over the top of that thing, even in like the driest summers. I mean, maybe when it was totally droughted out, and there was always that layer of green moss across there. Yeah, and we would go that thing in both directions.
Now, if memory serves me correct, KS, didn't you one day on a ride go through there and unclip your feet to not get your shoes wet? And as you swung them forward, it unweighted your back wheel and you ate the shite?
Yep. I was just thinking about that as we were talking. Yeah. Clipped both of the feet out. So this was obviously in the clipless pedal era. Thinking after toe clips, and swung the feet up, just like you said. Bike went out and
Yeah.
Wasn't not so good, as they say in Italy.
Not so good. Yeah. You got to watch out for those mossy creek crossings with the concrete. Yeah. They'll do you in. There's a lot of those. If you do the backcountry riding and get over the backside of Santa Barbara and come back across Paradise Road, there's several crossings back there. You were talking about your deciding not to go on the creek crossing. I did a ride. This would have been 8 years ago, I would think. We had a really wet winter. And my girlfriend at the time, Kim, and I, she was newer to gravel riding. And so we decided to do a super long gravel ride and went up Gibraltar and went down Angostura and then came across Paradise. And there's several creek crossings and they were deep. It's the deepest. And Kim, is only about 5'4". And we hit a couple of creek crossings where I had to port both our bikes across individually and then go back and help port her across because the water was flowing so readily. And what I did notice on that one is there was one specifically where it was coming over, like a concrete roadway, just like you were talking about. And, it was shallower there, but it was going really fast. And just the difference between like walking across it and having my feet be sideways perpendicular to the water flow, I could like feel it wanting to push me. And so I actually like turned and faced the water, but then sidestepped across and it was way better. So, plus, your shoes have a little bit more traction, long way sliding rather than, then sideways sliding. But that one was the last creek crossing to go across at Arroyo Burro before going up. That was the only one I was like, oh man, that's pretty deep. I mean, it was like waist deep on me, like walking through there. Luckily that area isn't super flowy. I'll have to go back and look. I'm pretty sure I have some photos of that I could bring up. That was quite a day. Definitely some water back there. Yeah. Yeah, San Ynez River.
One time I went inner tubing with my dad in the San Ynez River after a rain. Was probably not our brightest moment. We had wetsuits and inner tubes and booties, and we just and I think back, it's like, you could get your legs stuck in something, or you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But we had a lot of fun, and in the heart of winter, we went tubing. So,
well, I can remember one time not setting out to go tubing, but Kurt and our dad and we were out fishing over in the San Ynez on a day that it had kind of been raining and probably wasn't the best day for fishing, and or hadn't been raining, but it was the river was flowing pretty fast. And I remember finding this one spot where there was like a pretty calm pool circulating, and there was this nice branch that went out over it, like a tree that had fallen down. So I climbed out there and I got my tackle box and my fishing pole, and I'm like, oh, that looks good. And I go like that, and I just hear a crack, and I was in the river. Zeke's floating bait, bobbing, down the river. I think that was the end of it for me that day. I was mighty cold. So I didn't set out to go tubing, but I kind of ended up in there. Lost the Zeke's floating bait.
I have this regular route, and there's a small creek crossing, but I really don't like wet shoes because it just kind of ruins the rest of the ride.
Yep.
So I climb on this rock, on this branch across it, and I'm like going to all these elaborate lengths. And then the last part, there's a little bit of poison oak that you got to carefully, finagle
around,
navigate around it. And I go, man, all that to keep dry shoes,
Yeah. So. We would mountain bike and do the Arroyo Burro single track and park from the backside on Paradise Road. And there were a couple times my buddy Brian and I during COVID, we were going over and doing these early morning rides, like meeting at 5:30 when it was super cold, and going to ride through the river, and just like we did it one day and your feet just got soaked going up. And so after that, there were times when I would, just for that, I would put a Ziploc inside of or a Ziploc over and like wrap my feet, underneath the shoe, but between the socks, put like a plastic bag in there just to keep it warm so the feet didn't freeze on the way up. But it's hard to figure out a way to do it and do a disposable, because usually once you clip in, it tears the bottom, so you're trying to get through, but just not get that wet permeation. That's the worst when your feet are cold and damp.
Route we do up here, and we go through a quarry, and every winter it gets kind of rerouted by how much water comes down and stuff. And I think you've ridden that one.
Yeah, I've been through there a couple times.
And so once kind of spring rolls around, they get the heavy equipment down there, and they'll reroute the creek, and you can ride it. But in the winter, it's kind of it's a free for all.
Right.
And it was years and years ago. Me and my buddy Chris were out, and we get down there, and it's just all rock and gravel, so you can't ride across. So we would take our shoes off and walk across, especially in the winter when it's cold like that, because then your feet are cold for a little bit, right? You dry them off, and you put your socks back on, and you're good to go. So I remember we did that one day, and we get done. My feet were so numb when I got across. You kind of dry your feet off. You just want to get those wool socks back on and get your shoes on and get going. I get going. I'm like, God, I like stepped on a rock or something on my heel, and it was kind of bugging me the entire ride. So we do this whole ride like 4+ hours. I get home, I'm like, my heel's still bugging me. And I take my shoes and my socks off, and there was a pebble that had gone into the flesh of my heel.
Man.
Pretty decent size, and was in there the entire ride. And I got home and I plucked that thing out in the shower. It went dink, tink, fell on the floor of the shower. I was like, man. Thinking my feet must have been pretty cold that entire day, because I never,
to not feel it.
Felt like I had stepped on something and bruised it or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But,
you had a passenger.
Yeah. The steps we go through to keep our feet dry. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's riding, but we got some racing coming up, huh?
Yeah.
Road racing.
We're getting into the swing of it, getting over the early season smooth pavement, get your training on races in the warm climbs into the cobbled classic season.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's opening weekend this weekend, as they call it.
Yeah.
Right.
Loop, and then KBK. I'll let KS pronounce that one out loud.
Kern of Brussels Kern.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
KBK.
Otherwise known KBK. You can watch Loop on flow bikes. Unfortunately, not many people have flow bikes, but flow bikes is good for Flanders in the United States and Loop, and looks like flow bikes will have doors and Flanders. And then the next time you really need flow bike is when you want to watch the World Championships. So anyway,
they don't have that many.
Yeah, KBK will be on Max, and this is all in the United States. So in UK, you're going to watch on TNT. And in Australia, you're going to watch also on flow bikes. No, you're going. Yeah, sorry. Let me catch that again. Sorry. Anyway, a lot of flow bikes for you in Australia as well.
Well, luckily I got Max, so I'll be checking it out on that.
Rumor
Yeah.
that if you have flow bikes and you have a VPN, you can change your location and then you can watch more than just what they put.
Yeah.
I may or may not know a few people that have told me that works. So yeah,
That is
You've
yeah. But
that's
I mean,
possibly a rumor.
So we start right. The spring starts in Belgium, right?
Yeah.
At Loop, and then we kind of bookend it. Kind of toward the end, toward Flanders. We got Flanders and then Roubaix, but Belgium, Flanders, the Cobble Classics. Ed, should Remco race Flanders?
Yes, because he's struggling with the GC on these big stage races or these small lead-up stage races. The last time he won a stage race was a Tour of UAE a couple years ago, and then he has won the time trial in the Giro, the Tour, maybe even Vuelta. He's won 4 time trials in a row, and then the next day or the next mountain stage, he's bombed out of the race completely. Including last week at Tour UAE, where he won the time trial, and then on that pretty significant hilltop climb or mountain climb, he wasn't there. So I think he should pivot a little bit. I don't know. I've always felt he was vulnerable as a Grand Tour rider.
Yeah, he does definitely seem like he just has some holes in his game as far as the Grand Tour goes. But I agree, like getting him out to Flanders as a Belgian, I feel like you gotta go out there and represent it. Maybe if he was in the jersey, it would be a little bit better. I know. I think too. Like I think Remco's position. I think Remco, the way he rides, maybe he's still a little stiff for the cobbles. I don't know, something about him. Not like he's not obviously a great racer, but I just feel like the way he rides, like I think I was telling you guys, I refer to those guys as like the locomotives. It seems like they're good at just dropping into their position and just cranking forward, but that he just lacks a little bit of that maneuverability or sometimes a little bit of that suppleness in his riding. Now, obviously, one way to get that is to decide you're going to do a race like that and get better on the cobbles. Now, I was thinking about that and thinking about that Sagan, which I've always been really interested in, take note of the position side of things. That back when Sagan was coming out of his, as he was on liquid gas, and we remember he showed up and won whatever that was, like the first year at the Tour of California, he was like 5 stages or something ridiculous, mountain stage up to Big Bear, flat stages. And I remember reading an article with him and his coach, and they were talking about as he was working his endurance up and wanting to get up to where he could be a monument contender, and knowing his best monuments were like Flanders and Roubaix, that they said they were going to have to, he used to sit right up on top of the seat a little bit more in his early years. Ironically, a little bit more what positioning is like today, a little bit more further forward, but they posited that he needed to get his saddle and his weight back a little bit over the rear wheel and lower it down in order to excel at the classics. So, that was what they ended up doing. If you look at his position from those early liquid gas years compared to where he was in his prime years, he definitely lowered down and sat back a little bit. Interestingly enough, these days with Pogacar, I don't think the low is so bad. They've just figured out that you want to be forward rather than back. And he obviously seems to handle the cobbles pretty well.
So
it depends on the size of the rider. Smaller
Yeah.
rider, right? They weigh less and get that weight forward. I guess Sagan, I mean, kind of more of a mid-size rider. Like he's not
Middle to heavier, yeah.
middle to heavier, but not like a Mathieu Van Der Poel or
I
not
bet
quite that
you
close
that would
to
be
it.
interesting to see. I'll
5'11".
bet
Yeah,
you
I
he
don't
and
know what his
Vanderpool,
stats.
weight wise, maybe he wasn't as tall as him, but I would be curious. Yeah, maybe Sagan's a little bit lighter. That would be a good, yeah, a good stat. But it definitely does help, right? The lighter riders bounce around. That's a phenomenon across sport. I mean, it was the same way in downhill, although Jackson Goldstone has seemed to figure that out. But how to go fast everywhere. But the lighter riders, they would have to tune their suspension a little bit different, or sometimes would tend to get have a harder time being planted. Sometimes easy for them to get bounced around. And then obviously in downhill, the heavier riders, which I was, were lucky in that just gravity, would help us out and pull us down the mountain a little bit faster than a light rider. But yeah, so it'll be, yeah.
Do you see anything when you look at Matteo Jorgensen or Pedersen, or Wout, the three big riders? What do you see when they're riding the cobbles? Do you see anything unique to each of them?
I mean, off the top of my mind, I would say that Matteo looks the least savvy on that surface, probably. But I mean, I can't say I have a fresh idea of him, right in my mind. I mean, obviously, like Van Der Poel is incredible. He's the best of all of those. And then, Wout, I would think Wout had a little bit more of that suppleness earlier on. Like if you watched him the first couple of years, he raced Roubaix when he was still kind of fresh coming out of, his cross years and all that. I would say his position has morphed a little bit over time to make him probably better in, stages of Grand Tours and things like that, where he maybe has a little bit better chance of winning. He maybe seems like, I would say that Wout seems like he's a bit more static on the bike, whereas Van Der Poel seems like he's not so just like locked into his position, by like the reach and stuff. Like he's just a little bit more supple on the bike. Yeah, would be the biggest thing that I look at. Matteo, I mean, it's kind of hard if you're trying to be a Grand Tour guy to then also develop those cobble skills at the same time, or further those compared to, to racers who kind of grew up on that stuff, and riding cross. Yeah. Yeah, well, we remember that. Say maybe one last thing on the cobbles. We remember the year that Vincenzo, the Shark of Messina, won the Tour. He put the first not quite death blow, but major blow to those guys on the cobbles, and you could just see how comfortable he was. Just like crushing it, and got out there and rode it. He was also just a good bike handler overall.
Yeah, that guy had pretty top-notch bike handling skills.
For sure.
He was quite a descender, and I think being bike handling and being comfortable descending and being able to go fast but still ride within yourself talks to that comfortableness that you're talking about on the bike, and not being static and being able to consistently, you're making these micro adjustments. The computer does that in F1 for the cars, right? And the riders have to do it on the bike, because the rider is so much more of the weight of the complete package of the rider and the bike, and being able to do that, stay comfortable.
Yeah. And I think like when you think about the cobbles, and bike movement, I think that somebody, and I know just from having ridden different positions, over my cycling career and just, cycling journey. But I think that when especially if you're a high saddle setup, it doesn't leave a lot of room for the bike to bounce underneath you. If you see the guys as they're riding right and they go over the cobbles, you can tell by the way they hold their bike. It's not like they're in the air off the seat, but you can definitely see there's a little float in there that allows the back end just to kind of like hit bumps, and that energy doesn't go straight up to your body and then is trying to lift the whole weight of your body up. For people who just sit on the saddle and then also have a real, a higher saddle and a further reach, I find it's harder for them to find that room to let the bike dance around under them a little bit.
And I think that too is just something that you learn growing up doing that stuff. I mean, I guess you could train for it. I'm sure there's people that, just like you notice it, point it out. And it's like, it seems like of all the things these teams do with, checking out the power and the aerodynamics and these wheels and that handlebar, like, have you ever seen any teams doing any like specific bike handling training? It seems like we don't hear about that, especially on the road side.
Well, that's it, right? I mean, I think that, as we've talked about that we used to do back in the day, we really used cross primarily in the wintertime and mountain biking as a way to up our handling game, and it's great, right? Because you're on dirt, you can slide the back end and stuff and do maneuvers that are usually a bit more critical when you're on a road bike. But as far as going out and testing their race setups, I mean, that's the other thing. If you go out and train during the week on a set of whatever 36 mil deep carbon wheels, but you're always racing on 50s, that radial, vertical compliance of the rim is going to change the way that your bike handles. And so it seems like in this day and age, even though teams keep stuff to themselves, they also seem like they're big on pumping themselves up, talking about, altitude training or this type of training or lowering tire pressure, during a race on the cobbles and then bringing it back up, all these different technical aspects of it. But I don't really recall that many times in recent instance of them saying, hey, we're going out doing testing days on our road bikes, going downhill and driving them back up and letting them coast down. Which in downhilling, we used to do, we called it no chain training. You would do downhill runs and not pedal, because then it was like a fair representation of just your handling skills. But I wonder how much they take guys out and, have different wheel sets or different spokes put in for the 130-pound climber as opposed to the 160-pound cobbled racer, and take them all out and do, I would think of it more like days that I saw testing out at the motocross or supercross track, where they're just changing components that are strictly based on handling, trying to get the feel of the bike better. So it's a good point you bring up, KS. And if I don't see it happening out there, I'm really just kind of curious if it is in fact happening.
And I feel like yeah. Some Grand Tour rider, was it Jonas or somebody, went and did some downhill training. Maybe it was Remco after his Lombardia crash. Remco didn't look good on the downhills when he first came out as a young rider. He looked horrible his first Strade Bianchi.
Yeah.
I think he looks better now. But I feel
Definitely.
like there was one rider that did some training or hired a consultant. I'm trying to remember who it was.
Was that Thibaut Pinot?
I know Pinot struggled with that, with the mental side of descending, and they used, a guy who actually, KS, both of us raced against in downhill, Oscar Saez. If you remember him, he was like a tall Spanish rider. He's been working, he towards the end of his career, he raced for Giant, and he's been hired by various teams, but I think he's employed by Giant now, and he actually does that, helps with the handling side of things on their pro road team. We'll do crossover stuff. So, but that's one thing, right? That's just saying, hey, take this corner different, put your weight different, drop a leg, counter steer a little bit. But are they actually going out on a day and switching componentry to try and get that feel? And you see guys who might gain a bunch of time going up the mountain, but then they get dropped, out of the group that they're in on the downhill. I mean, some of it's painful. I look at that like a free throw almost. It's free time. You don't want to be giving up free time like that. So it would be interesting to see. I wish we had a way to talk to a few insiders on teams and see if any of them are doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ben Edwards. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it goes back to what you were talking about at the beginning, like what riding you've been doing. You were doing laps on your circuit at Ealing's Park, right? Cyclocross, when they go out training cyclocross, I mean, other than probably specific stuff, they're doing laps on a circuit and stuff. Yeah. And it's doing that, just repetition. Throwing different wheels on takes all of a couple of minutes, right? Playing with different torques on the through axles, or consistent torque on the through axles, different or even tires, tire pressure.
Yeah. I mean, you could do the same corner 5 times and, go down a PSI each time, or a PSI in the front and then a PSI in both. Just, that's the type of testing that I think would really give those guys just that feel, when they're descending.
Well, the service course report was originally designed to be delving into the technology and what's going on. I think we need to do a better job and try and learn some of these details. I think one detail that'll be fun to watch in the opening weekend is, maybe not how much that factor bike gets used.
Oh, yeah.
So who's on it? Modern Adventure is on it, some of their riders, and then who else is on Factor? Why am I drawing a blank?
AG2R is what, Van Rysel?
Anyway, there's another team on it, and that bike can take some tires. And I know there's some UCI rules that we should know about tire circumference, because I don't think you can ride a 40. It violates a UCI rule that we need to be more
rolling circumference, how big the wheel
we need to
could
be more of experts on. Yeah, we can't pontificate without knowing the UCI rules. But anyway, that bike, might kind of crack the code at Paris-Roubaix with somebody trying to go 38s or 36s or, because the typical tire size at Paris-Roubaix and maybe some of these cobble races has probably been a 32 maybe, or a 30, probably a 30.
I think that's where they're up to. Yeah, 30s, 32s.
I do believe, though, that the UCI did put some limit on road tires, just like they did with cross tires.
Right.
They did.
Yeah. Well, it's funny bringing up the UCI. I was doing a quick run through, just checking out some cycling websites, and saw a quick story about saying how the UCI is coming out defending their reasoning for why they made the decision on when they came out with their rules last year, of why they made the decision on what depth of wheel they felt was safest. And it kind of cracked me up. I just thought it's so UCI. First of all, people are querying like, well, how come all this data wasn't available originally? But the funniest thing I thought about it is, here's the UCI coming out with something, and they're saying, hey, this is the reason why we chose, wheel depth, and this is our information about it. But based on their whole reasoning to make all these changes, which was to stop crashing, it doesn't seem like the crashes have been any less since they brought these rules out, right? I mean, you've had big crashes and minus some marsupial infringement down in, in Australia, where you had like outside factors coming in. Seems like we've still seen these big crashes. And I just thought it was so hilarious that here's the UCI defending why they made a decision on a rule that doesn't seem like it matters anyway, because it's not achieving the goal, which was to stop all these crashes. So I think they, as we talked about, and this doubles up with what we were talking about on handling, I just think the modern bike does not handle as well, in certain situations, especially at speed. I mean, how could it? If there's a lot more aerodynamics and deeper wheels and wider frames, I mean, all of that has a cost on your freeness of handling. So I would really like to see them go back and again look at some of the standards for bike handling. Exactly how you do that, I don't know, but that's their job.
Right. So Go ahead. I looked and I saw a thing that 31 millimeters is the max width for road tires. And
I wonder if that's a caliper test. Do they have like NASCAR where they just have the aluminum template, where they like lay it over? Do they just have a 31 mil ding, right? That's been measured and spec'd.
How else would you do it? You can't go by the hot patch.
Like, why would you? Here, UCI, and I don't know that this is an amateur, but like, why limit it to 31? What's the point? I could see in cross, I mean, even still, I think in cross, but dude, go out there on a 50. You're not going to win. You're going to be going way too slow, right? If everybody else is on 34s, but why limit it at 31? That just seems like so arbitrary when it's obvious that the guys are already using 30s. The UAE team, that's their preferred tire and on a wide rim. So who knows if a 30 stretched out is 31, but what's the difference? Those guys aren't going to use it if they're not going fast with it. So try and find some technology. Let them make a super, super, super thin casing 35 or 40, and see if that's faster. Like all the disc bikes mostly take a bigger tire. I don't see the point of stopping there.
All right, here's a quote. So this was announced April 1st of 25 that the UCI made effective immediately, those tires. And then it says, Le Paritent, during a press conference, announced a new rule. It would have made he says, if road tires had gone up like beyond 33, which is the cross limit, he said, quote, that would have made a mockery of everything the sport of cycling stands for, end quote. Like, what's that? But then this is the better quote, and you guys can guess.
Wait, who said this?
That was David Lepard.
Oh, that was
the UCI president.
Make a mockery of everything that cycling stands for.
And then another well-known road racing individual said, road racing is supposed to be hard, and road bikes are supposed to be uncomfortable. Can you imagine people calling me the cannibal if I had been riding on plush 32 millimeter tires? So that's
Yes.
Eddie
I
Merckx
can imagine them calling the cannibal because you were just attacking and dropping people and crushing them and winning races.
Yeah. So
But therein lies the reason why it took so long for disc brakes to make their way into road cycling is this tradition of certain things. And the funniest part about it is the traditions that are now being debunked as to what's actually better. Right. And we brought up some of this, but like we were taught like back in the OTC days, and really that probably was all the way to the 90s. If you look at the positions, right, your fastest position is on the drops, hands out, all these different positions that we know now have been debunked. I mean, look at Pogacar and his 165 cranks that now everybody's following. Does that, whatever, make a mockery of cycling that you're winning Grand Tours on 165s? That attitude, while I understand you have to preserve, like I believe in the double diamond, like, I don't want to have just way out there bikes maybe as it comes to being fair, from teams that have a lot of resources to put in. So I can see some stuff. You want to keep it in traditional lines, but just that statement, like that 33C road tires are going to make a mockery of everything that cycling stands for. How about the UCI making lame rules and not considering all the manufacturers that put all the money into the sport and make some arbitrary rule for safety that isn't even making the sport safer?
Yeah. Well, and use the money from SRAM sponsored teams to fight a SRAM case.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, they're taking funds that they get from these teams, and that money, some of it comes from SRAM, and then fighting SRAM. So, and then the UCI's one of their primary sponsors is Shimano. So it's just
conflict of interest potentially.
Mm-hmm.
No, sure. It sounds like it. Or are these service course guys just a bunch of conspiracy theorists? I don't know.
Conflict of intelligence, more like.
Yes, or lack of intelligence.
All right. Well,
anyway, so we were talking about that, but talking about on the racing side.
Yes.
Since we are talking about racing, the season started, and now everyone's making their predictions for the entire year, and all the Grand Tour racers haven't even raced. I kind of came across what I thought was an interesting parallel with the decathlon CMA CGM team with a young American, only American on that team, in Matthew Riccatello, coming on, and he's had, he started out with a bang with his team winning that. I can't remember the name of the race, but you guys will bear with us on that. And then Paul Seixas, 19 years old, the French hope. And we've got him, and we've got Kevin Vonkelon, but he's over at Ineos. But as I'm seeing a parallel to a young American joining a French team for the 1981 season. When Le Mans, granted a much bigger star in his early years, being junior world champion, signed with the Renault Elf Janton team alongside of the super French hero, and not coincidentally the last French winner of the Tour de France, Bernard Hinault. And we kind of, it was the star of the Tour de France and the darling of all of France. We kind of know how that dynamic turned out. So it'll be interesting to watch this with the one American on that team. Is there potentially a power struggle, or are they going to be able to figure it out? But I'd like to, hear from what other people think and what you guys think on that one.
Well, let's unpack it a little bit. Decathlon, help me out, is like Dick's Sporting Goods or Target. I mean, they're a large international sporting goods store and apparel.
Yeah, but it's a French Decathlon is a French company. Yeah.
And so then they needed a bike, so they created Van Rysel, which is launching more seriously in the United States, and now the primary sponsor of BWR. It's sort of quickly they needed to create a bike, and they're not getting the worst reputation. Those bikes, honestly copied Specialized pretty hard, with the tarmac. But, those bikes are doing okay. That there's some money and energy behind this team. KS, you were pointing out that they were sort of featured in the second Unchained on Netflix, and they were very French and a little bit obscure in some of their processes, but seems like they've kind of cleaned that out and are really focused on becoming a force.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's like I'm looking at that. We talked about that Unchained, and granted, that's right. It's Hollywooded up, right? They create the drama, but it really looked like there was the guy that came in from Decathlon, the marketing person that came in when they put that money into that team. It seems as though he did actually have a vision for this team. So I dug a little bit deeper. 28 riders on that team. 25 of them are 30 years or old or younger. There's only 3 riders that are over 30 years old, and that oldest one is 35 years old, and that's Oliver Nazin. So it's like, is this the next super team, right? We always talk about these super teams.
Right.
We had Telecom, then we had Postal, right? We had the Sky years, Ineos, then we Visma, and now we have UAE, and Visma and Ineos are still kind of there, but like, what is super team, and does that always mean money, or does it just mean that they're doing the right thing? And hopefully we don't see these riders get developed on this team and then get lured away by a more lucrative contract. But I mean, wouldn't it be great to see a French winner of the Tour in the next few years on a French team?
Yeah.
Well, should Sexas or Sexy Ass at 19 years of age, should Sexy Ass start the Tour de France at 19? Question for you.
I don't know enough about him. At 19, I would say no, just based on the years. But as DS touched on the last podcast, with the polarized training and the riders being more specialized, they are being able to handle that load. We'll see how that works between the mental burnout and the physical toll on the body. I mean, they're not doing as many miles now to prepare for the tour, so that quote wear and tear isn't there so much.
And do you, if you're AG2R or Decathlon, so here's what you would balance, right? You get eight racers in the Tour. If you don't have a full GC leader, depending, then, and let's just say you could get 8 or 10 days of amazing press out of Sexas, do you throw him in to get experience and see what he can do in the first week, knowing he can take it as an 8 to 10 day stage race and then bow out? I don't know.
I say yes. I mean, I'm looking at their roster. They've got former Tour stage winners here. They've got, I didn't realize they had hired Olaf Koy. So they got a sprinter there. So they do have that. I don't think that they have necessarily a Tour de France winning roster yet, but I think that they're playing the long game from, being an outsider looking in and right, with the crystal ball that I don't have and not following this a lot. But majority French riders, but a fairly international, scope. They've got a guy like Stefan Bissinger, so quite a great time trialist. Tish Benoot moved to that team for 2026. There are some experienced riders that I think could probably help younger riders get through this stuff. So it'll be fun to see how it all plays out.
Right. Yeah.
He's going to ride Strada Bianchi, not Paris-Nice or Tirreno Adriatico. And then he's also requested to start LBL, Liège-Bastogne-Liège.
So it sounds like they are maybe taking him into a little bit of a lighter approach, but that also still doesn't mean that you couldn't line up for the Tour and race it for 10 days. I mean, there's been sprinters that have gone in and done that. Or, Van der Poel did that the one year and pulled out because I think the Olympics were coming or something.
Well, Lance did that his first year in the Tour, too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Won the stage, right? In the U.S. Pro Jersey. Wasn't that? I'm trying to think, yeah.
Yeah, he won a stage after, who was the Italian?
Casertelli.
Team, and dedicated to Fabio Casertelli after he had passed in that crash earlier in the year. So well, racing's coming, everybody.
I know, exciting. We get to stop being able to talk about it and actually, talk about what's going to happen, and then be able to, pause it on what actually did happen, see who shows up. I love it. Like when it comes in the first big races of any sports season, there's all the talk and this person's been doing all this prep and everything, but it really doesn't matter until you show up at the first race and see what actually happens. Yeah.
Well, and we were talking about factor bikes a little bit there. That we got Romain Bardet racing on the factor, and coming out on the gravel bike, going hot, winning early. So that's going to be fun to watch. I think the days of the gravel retirement tour are quickly coming to an end for these riders. Like, they're going to have to train and be fit to do this because. And I may have touched on this before, like it's kind of like with triathlon, it was swimmers and bikers and runners that became triathletes. And then all of a sudden there are athletes that became triathletes from the get-go. I think we're having riders that are, coming into gravel racing to be gravel racers, not coming from a road career or a mountain bike career. And with that, it just gets more competitive. So super fun to watch.
Factor very quickly came out with a new front fork for him. He was riding a much wider front tire. In the last two races. I'm curious to see, he hasn't been focused on coming to the United States. If he comes to Unbound, I hear he's working on Unbound. He's definitely coming to Unbound. But if he shows up at Sea Otter and tries to make a run at the wild card, Lifetime released their wild card riders, and his name wasn't on there. But I was like, well, maybe he'll come to the States and make a run at Sea Otter and see how it goes. But his name wasn't on that list. I think maybe he's going to be more focused on racing in Europe.
Yeah. I think a couple things that will make Bardet, what gives him maybe a leg up on gravel is one, if we remember years in the tour where they attacked the descents. Like, he's a good descender on the road. He's not one of those guys who would climb up and then lose time on the descent. He's not afraid to go on the attack on the descent. And that's just a mindset, of taking it on the offensive instead of defensive. And then two, I was looking through my photo files as I was trying to find some old photos, and came across this picture that is one of my most favorite pictures. And I don't remember what year it was. I think he got third in the tour twice, but it was the year that he beat Landa. And it was like a final time trial, and he saved third by it was like 5 seconds or something ridiculous. It was short. And there's just this picture of him just sitting on the ground afterwards. And you can just tell it's like, it'd be one thing if you just showed up at TT Worlds and did a hard right? You're going to be blasted. But just like the overall just exhaustion in him, you could see out of this picture. Like I said, it's just one of my favorite pictures of all of cycling. I'll have to bring it up so we can see it next time, but it was just spectacular. He's kind of sitting on the ground, leaning up against a wall. I think the time trial finished inside some of a little arena or something like that. And so if you can handle your bike and you're a suffer master, I think that those are probably maybe of your top needs for gravel racing. Those are two of the ones up at the pointiest end of your needs, up at the top. Yeah. Seems like he's got a good attitude.
I think I might have found it. Yes.
Yeah.
Nah, no regrets. Let's see.
Yeah. So, but that'll be interesting to see what guys show up and do it. I really think that, we're talking about gravel and this whole UCI Gravel World Series, and I just have not been impressed with the UCI's version of gravel. It's just, if you can use a road bike, to me, which they can on some of them, it doesn't really seem like it's a gravel race. Theirs seem like more like big dirt criteriums, something like that.
I heard a rider at US.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard a rider based in Europe, a US rider based in Girona, who's been riding those UCI races. And I think it's the Worlds that kind of gave it a bad name. I think the UCI series races, I do believe that Mammoth Tough was a UCI series race, and that is definitely the sandiest, soggiest, deepest gravel or moon rock you can find around. Right. I think the series itself actually kind of has a good reputation for racing. Maybe one reason why it has a good reputation is there's no age group stuff going on a lot of times. It's just kind of a pretty serious race. The Gravel Earth series is really worth watching. The TV production of that is excellent.
That's that shot.
Yeah. Well, there we go.
And I think I have a
Sorry for
slightly
interrupting you
different,
there, Ed. But,
yeah,
No, no
slightly
worries.
different angle of that, but it's the same shot, dude. Just like look at that.
yeah.
Yeah, you're just like,
The
dude,
body
completely
language.
spent. Yeah,
He looks like he had water poured over his head.
yeah, yeah, probably so. Or it was just, dude, just look at that, just sitting there like, WTF, man.
Or he's
Yeah.
backstage, lead singer for for Depeche Mode, getting ready to go out for the encore at the end of the long tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a
Yeah.
great one though, DS. You look at that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that
talking about
was,
leaving it all out there, right?
yeah, that's like a time trial like that, something like that. And that's what I mean. That's just like, how bad do you really want it? When you're on the last day of a 3-week tour and you're battling it out to the seconds, like just to be able to extract that type of suffering out of your body. Yeah. Bardet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Well,
So-
all right. Yeah.
Positive Pete, I think we wanted to mention that Pete Stetina has been pivoting on his Instagram a little bit as, he rolls out his sort of active coach, what was it called? Coach trainer. And he has sort of a German word that I'll get Cass to pronounce for us.
Or Spieler trainer.
Spieler trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just been rolling that out. Did some commentary about agents in privateer gravel world, and then agents representing teams and riders on teams. And then he is at the Canyon rider, training camp, gravel rider training camp in Spain. He also did some commentating on the opening Gravel Earth Series race, where he was excellent as a commentator. So we're just going to kind of mention Positive Pete in his own little segment.
There we
Yeah,
go.
Pete.
Yeah, yeah. If you're on the socials, it's at P Stetina, Stetina. He doesn't overwhelm you with posts, and they seem like they're actually thought out. They're not just to get clicks, like he's telling a story, which is refreshing.
That would seem more like his style anyway.
Yeah.
Just in general. Seems like a little bit more of a thinker,
So in the amateur section, DS, Mark Soler keeps
The saga continues.
leaning in, and the news keeps getting a little more unfolded.
Yeah, and I'll just reiterate again why. If the latest stuff, right, you meet up on the top of a pass somewhere, like, right, doing a lactate threshold test, which I think you pointed out. Somebody said, hey, Podjakar's girlfriend does his test, so it's not like you need your full science trainer up there with that technology today. And so why amateur? The story continues, we'll see what happens, but it definitely doesn't seem like it's gonna die anytime soon.
Yeah, Soler is a pretty impressive rider. He's on UAE, which is, probably we'll say the world's #1 team.
Yeah.
And his dad was associated with a U.S. Postal Service doctor who's been banned by the Spanish Sports Authority or governing body from ever working with athletes right now. I think it's an 8-year ban, maybe even longer, going back to his U.S. Postal days where he was, clearly implicated in that.
Right.
So he's been associating with Mark Soler's dad, who's an amateur triathlete. And, there's some passing of luggage with training logs that don't really have names associated in them. So this is all going back to 22, and you can Google it, and the story's sort of unfolding a little bit. I think Soler is actually going to make some kind of comment about it soon in the coming days, because he probably needs to, but
Yeah, because it's not going away.
So what you're saying is his people are crafting a response.
Amateur.
Here, I got
Yeah.
another one, DS.
What's that? Oh, yeah, that's the one.
That's the photo. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
People
it.
you
Dude,
asked.
look. That is just entire systematic suffering right there. There's not one cell in his body that isn't just blasted. Look at the look on his face.
Yeah.
That's just like, what a hero, man.
Yeah. All right.
he's so little.
All right.
Yeah.
gravel
Bardet.
racers.
Let's see him at well, if he did come to Otter, that would be spectacular. That might be our number one interview we would want to get if we could. Although I don't know how good his English is, as I don't know that any of our French is that great.
Oh, oui.
Oui.
Oh no, that would be a good one. But I guess, right? You see that? Yeah, see that look? Be on the lookout, gravel racers worldwide.
That's right.
A Tour de France podium finisher coming to have your
we'll be looking for your quotes at Sea Otter, and then we've booked some studio space right after the Lifetime Grand Prix in the media center. So we'll be hosting hopefully a nice guest post race on Thursday afternoon after the Lifetime Grand Prix gravel race.
Yeah, the gravel race. That'll be good. I mean, you guys know I love Sea Otter every year. If nothing else, then I just get to go out and car camp and ride bikes for 5 days, aside from getting to do all the pod stuff. But it is just such a great setup. And KS, this will be your first year of not having to do the drive out and back in a while, right? Because I'm always touting how much time and energy you save just being a 5-minute jaunt right from the venue up into the campground, as opposed to having to drive out in traffic and go into town and do all of that. So maybe you can get a little
booth, don't have to tear down a booth, don't have to deal. Yeah.
Bring your bike lights. We might get out for a little evening, a little ride out in the evening on those fire roads. That would be pretty fun. I did that one year. Yeah, bring all the bikes. That's right. I did that one year and rode over when Jonah came up, and we rode down to a party and came back up, and we rode down, went down the back way, and we were coming up, and there was zero moon. There was no moon. We were riding up. It was pitch black. And we came up off the bottom. You climb up this fire at the beginning, and it's a little creaky down there. And then all the way up, like halfway up, it was just Frog City. It was amazing. And, put on the lights and we're riding up, and it was just ribbits of frogs all the way up this thing in the dark. And if you would turn your light off, you really could not see anything. So you had to put them on. But it's pretty fun. I've always wanted to get out and do a little night ride. So maybe that'll have to be one of the ones that we do this year. Just get out for a fun cruise out there on the fire roads, As you know, we're like 30 seconds from dropping into the single track from where the campsite is. Yeah.
Sounds good. We'll have to see what the moon phase is like in the middle of April.
Yeah, we'll have to look it up. Maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe we'll have some moonlight out there and go out and do a ride. Yeah. Well, yeah.
I was gonna say we haven't done a what went wrong in a while, right? But our buddy Dave Wong, who the segment's named after, he's quite a fan of cycling. Like we were out of contact with each other for 30 years.
Yeah,
more. I
actually did a little something. Yeah, actually, probably was 30 years ago though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were saying?
Oh, I was just saying. He actually one time when I was living down in LA in my early downhill years, he was in the film industry, and he got me a gig. He had contacted me, and he's shooting some movie that was like a bad, I don't even know if it was a B grade version. It might have been a C grade version of like that movie Anaconda from way back in the day with like Ice Cube and J-Lo about the big snake. And I think this one was called Python. And so they're actually shooting one day in some park, I think up in Pasadena or something. We'll have to bring this up. And so he had me do something. I think there was a bike segment or something about it. And I wasn't actually riding. I was just there to kind of help consult. I think that's the only time I've ever gotten an actual movie credit for something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he stuck me at the end. I remember him. I think he sent me this is, in the 90s. So it was probably, I don't even think he sent me an email. I think he actually sent me a physical piece of paper, but it said, hey, just to let you know, you got a credit under stunt or under coordination or something in that. So yeah, but that was also, like I said, about 30 years ago. So to your point. Yeah, Dave Wong.
Dave's fired up. So we saw, was it last week, there was a leak of a potential route for the 2028 Olympic road race. And the first person on our little text group we have sent it out. Dave sent it out to our group, and he's fired up. I mean, he already is like, wants to rent motorhomes and camp out on the course. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So that was what we thought, right? Like you were saying, Ed, maybe what went wrong is just what's up with Dave Wong this week. Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like it's going to be 16,000 feet of climbing, which might make it the toughest Olympic road race course ever. It also could be hot. And, the air quality probably nowadays in the days of catalytic converters is going to be, pretty good, but air quality could be an issue for the riders. So it's for the women, it's going to be 9,600 feet of climbing, and there'll be 101 miles. The men will be 156 miles, so that's monument distance.
Or stakes length, KS 156.
Yeah. And that's like the same distance as LBL or Lombardia in the fall, which are kind of considered to be the hardest one-day races on the World Tour. And the course, I think it, let me bring it up here, starts in Venice or Santa Monica.
Yeah.
And then it's not clicking up real well. Oh, yeah, looks like Venice. And then along Malibu. I think that's Tuna Canyon. Is that the Bottle Shop climb that they look like they're going to do
I think it goes out to Mulholland, all the way out to Mulholland, to Leo Carrillo.
Oh, yeah.
It goes up there. That race. It's not the first time there was a race out there.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting. Mulholland's, it's great that they use some of those spectacular long climbs. And then what is it? I didn't get a chance. I saw the link, but I didn't get to deep dive. I saw it looked like it went up the coast. Actually would be up the coast and then turn in through the mountains.
And it goes back into the valley. It's going to go Encino, and then Ventura it's going to work. Yeah, Ventura Boulevard. Well, it gets itself to Calabasas.
Kern's Classic.
Encino, and then the Hollywood Hills, back into Hollywood, and then up into Griffith Park. I don't know if that's the observatory. It kind of looks like the observatory parking lot as the finish, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yep, definitely the observatory parking lot with Adele, where she did her live concert. So
they need space for all the parking and the broadcast stuff. And what I also saw is it looks like they might do circuits around the rock store.
Correct. That's what I was calling the Bottle Shop.
So they do they coast up through the mountains, circuit on a hard middle, and then race it out to finish.
California did circuits there at least 1 year when they finished like down in Westlake or something, I think.
Yeah.
So it should be, for anybody that knows those roads, I rode them a bit back in the 80s, but it's still pretty spectacular out there. It's going to be challenging. It could be super warm too.
Dude, if it's hot out there in the canyons, man, that's like a pizza oven out there.
Yeah.
That'll definitely
as a spectator, I hope it's not hot, but for visual photos like Bardet, I kind of want it to be hot.
Sweaty.
Yeah, I want to see him suffer. I don't want to see him like holding up their bike in front of the Eiffel Tower. I want to see, sitting in the shade of the Griffith Observatory.
Yeah. Looking like Bardet. That tour photo. Yeah, that's what we want. That sounds good. That'll be fun to keep up on it.
I bet you the women don't do that circuit. That's probably how they go shorter. Men are
just race straight through.
One time or something, or straight through part of it. I mean, there hasn't been an official drop, has there? Are you aware? Is there an official drop of it?
No, there's a document that Escape Collective has seen, and then they've found this Strava link, and they do a pretty careful job of being true journalists. So I think we're on to something here.
Yeah, nice. All right.
It goes back to the 1984 game.
I was just calculating that out. It will be 44 years.
Yeah. Did you go with us down there on that?
I went with my dad. It's a day I'll never forget. I was on the hillside with the whole hill chanting USA, and I told my dad, I go, Alexi has no chance against Steve Bauer in the sprint. And we were watching it come towards us, and I will never forget Alexi winning. And I will never forget being on that hill. Yep.
Yeah,
and I also have
down the back of my neck.
Watching the African nations off the back and their wool jerseys with oversized wool jerseys with no one really feeding them, so like water bottles swinging back and forth. Like I get goosebumps thinking about those poor nations racing that day. Like it was a crazy day. The crowds were huge.
Yeah, that was so much fun.
And Yeah, and Connie Carpenter winning as well. Like U.S. beating Twig, the women went one too. Yeah, that was
yeah, with the bike throw.
And no one gave her the chance either. I mean, really, well, except for her and Davis. But yeah, yep.
Yeah, and I think you had 3 men in the top 10. You had Thurlow Rogers, Davis, and Alexi, right? You had 3 U.S. riders.
5th. Yeah, which is pretty amazing. You got to go back, and if you ever want to YouTube up that, and there's some clips of Davis climbing up the climb, carrying his big upper body up that. But if you look at how far forward that guy used to sit on the bike, I think I remember him actually saying something about that once he was a pro, that he had looked back and he was like, oh my God, you're looking at these early positions. You tend to be further forward. Back in those days as an amateur coming out of juniors, you would spin more and then seem like slam the seat back with the modern day gearing and everything, and iliac artery consideration and muscle fatigue. Now they're forward at the top of the sport.
Yeah. Well, he was the master of criterium racing. Him and Steve Bauer setting the 50-mile record one race after another. Doing a 2-man team time trial off the front. Race like Somerville or something.
Davis, we gotta have a deep dive on Davis one episode and just bring up some photos. And he's incredible.
The plan that day was for Davis to win and Alexi upset the apple cart.
Well, if there was an apple cart to be upset, Alexi would have been down to do it. He was definitely his own person. All the gray walls, were like that. Yeah.
Well, I put something up about the Olympics recently, and my old teammate James Urbanis said, I think it was James, he said that Davis actually chose to wear a skin suit that day. Did we talk about this before? And he didn't. And so he didn't have a pocket for water bottles, and he asked Alexi for water to win the race, and Alexi's like, no. I mean, you got to remember, Alexi was the black sheep for Eddie B.
Right.
Eddie B did not want him racing, but he qualified and did it. I mean, and he even had he had a positive dope test coming into it. For ephedrine.
For ephedra.
Yeah, or ephedra, Yeah, so got him put back in.
Just to round that out, ephedra is used in tea that some of us might have drank when we were a kid. And Tony Vincente had it in raw stick, plant dried stick form, and he boiled it down and tried to climb Gibraltar afterwards. It didn't go so well, but
ended up down at the hospital with a swollen throat. Give it up for Vinny the Hack, man.
That's right.
But let's step back just for a moment. Alexi was dominant at the Olympic trials leading into the LA Olympics. Right. I mean, he was on fire, and he earned that spot, whether they, didn't want him there or not. He was on fire.
Well, he had to, because that was his only. That was the only way he was going to do it, and then they tried to get him out with that. Well, anyway.
Yeah.
You can read it if you want to look it up.
It is an interesting piece of history. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up episode 20.
Yeah, 20.
And thank you, everyone, for your comments and supporting us on 20 episodes. And we'll see you out there. Maybe some of you in Arizona. So, yeah.
Or the grasshopper this weekend.
The hopper.
Yeah, that's right. I got hopper number 2 on Saturday, so we'll be coming at you. We'll have a lot of stories for the next Kick podcast.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get out and do something. So my stories can keep up. You guys got some good ones coming up. Yeah.
All right. Take care, everyone.